Darkcast Network. Welcome to the dark side of podcasts.
Warning: the following podcast may occasionally contain strong language and material that is not suitable for all ages. If you are easily offended, it is highly advised that you turn back now. However, if you're a degenerate, welcome, brethren. You've found your home.
Welcome to the Crime Diner. We are a Jersey podcast, and on the menu is a variety of true crime, cults, mysteries, historical hilarities, and sometimes victim stories. We do this within a Dinner with Friends theme. I'm Nidia.
I'm Dana. I'm Cindy.
So last week I told you about a time when eBay got real petty.
Yeah, that was so nuts.
And it caused some of the higher up executives to go to jail.
Good. Well, just one, right?
Well, no, it was. Well,
Yeah.
you're gonna just have to listen to it. You know what I mean? Yeah, but it was. I found it was like one of those Goliath versus
David
versus Goliath kind of thing.
For real. Also, this like unsuspecting couple like popping around with their 200-person blog, like,
right? Okay? Like this tiny little blog, and this just like. Anyway.
Very crazy.
Yeah, it was very petty.
So today we're going to talk about a complicated guy, a self-proclaimed gay avenger. Many in the gay rights movement appreciate his efforts to expose homophobia and hypocrisy, but others criticize his methods and tactics as unethical and counterproductive.
Oh, I love that.
You be
Those
the judge.
two things are my absolute favorite things to do.
Yeah, this guy he's complicated. He's complicated. He has a redemption arc, but he's complicated. So we're going to talk about Ed the Skull Murphy, his name is.
All right. Yeah. Ooh, I can't wait to hear this. But first, the food. Let us pray. Bless us, O patrons, for these thy gifts, which we are about to receive from thy donations through Patreon every month, under the power of the V Podcast.
Cult. Stuffed shells, I think?
No. Stuffed shells, yes. You know, I woke up this morning and I was like, I'd love some stuffed shells.
Good, your wish and prayers.
Yes.
Answered. Red wine.
Okay.
Obviously.
Carlo de Rossi, of course.
A little vino.
A little
Paisano.
red wine.
Yeah.
That looks like the cheapest of the cheapest wines.
It is, but I had to go with Paisano.
Okay.
Okay. And
a tiramisu.
oh, I love it. See, I like sloppy wet cake.
So this is actually a Irish cream tiramisu.
Okay.
Ooh. Can't wait.
All right, let's go.
Let's dig in.
All right. How's your tummy feel after scarfing down all those stuffed shells?
Gassy. I ate so fast.
The way I wasn't even sat down with my plate and you were like, I'm like, Jesus Christ, are you okay?
I was so hungry I was shaking.
I saw that.
I was so hungry.
That was delicious.
It really was.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was really good. It was like a bolognese sauce.
That bolognese was cooking since about 10 this morning for about 6 hours, in other words.
Oh.
Very good.
That was delicious. It had a little bit of punch to it.
Yeah, there was a little something that was a little kick to
spike.
it.
Well, that might have been in the actual shells. I had to put a little bit of red pepper flakes in there.
Oh, all right.
Delicious.
Thanks for the warning.
Yeah, there was like
No
one little
warning
bite where
for
I was
y'all.
like,
Yeah, I was like, oh.
Yo, whatever I put in there, it's not anything you guys can't handle.
No, I know.
no, it was delicious.
The tiramisu also. I love a wet cookie. I love a wet
I'm like
cookie.
highly offended by a wet cookie. It makes me so mad. But thankfully I had just some of the insides. Well, I used to work at a pizza place when I was very young, and they used to have these frozen tiramisus, these little frozen cups, and you would just like take them out and give them to the guest and whatever. I never had tiramisu because I don't like squishy bread. But the smell of them, I was always like, I kind of want to like try what that tastes like. One day, like just ate one in the back, and then I proceed to fucking tear them up every day. I would be like scraping them out.
Really?
But they didn't have the wet. I mean, there was something in there that was cakey, but I guess since it was frozen, it didn't have that same texture that is like mushy.
The wet bread
So
texture.
I love the flavor. I don't like the texture. But Cindy gave me one of the raw nuts soaked cookies, and it was really good.
A ladyfinger.
A ladyfinger.
A ladyfinger, and I gave you just the filling
Yes.
with the unsoaked ladyfinger.
What's the brown? The coffee? Is there like a coffee?
It's coffee, and I actually added Irish cream, a little nod to our person that you're gonna be
Talk
featuring.
about? Yeah.
Right.
He's got a little Irish in him.
I want a little Irish in me.
Top of the morning, too.
I want a big Irish in me. Anywho, I am a little tipsy.
A little tipsy? Oh, let's talk about the wine specifically.
Yeah.
It's a Paisano.
It's it's a good wine.
Yeah, it's a good wine. It'll do.
It's a classic table wine. Carlo de Rossi.
You know how many quinceañeras had this while I was growing up? I've been drinking Carlo de Rossi since I can remember.
Really?
Since I have memory, I've been drinking Carlo de Rossi.
When I went to the store that I go to, I went straight to the wine person, and the person was like, I said, look, I know Carlo de Rossi's not in the regular wine area that I normally go to. You're going to have to take me to him. He took me all the way to the back of the store where you find the cheapest wine
In the
back
employee
there.
the employee break room.
You know what? But it does the trick, right?
Yeah. Oh my God,
It
yeah.
works with stuffed shells.
It tastes great.
It's good. Yeah, it's
It
fun.
tastes fucking great.
Yeah.
When I go to Danny's family's house, they have a jug of this.
This
As
is
a matter of
that-
fact,
yep.
the guy standing behind me had a jug of the same wine behind me.
Yeah,
He's
this is that-
what I go with.
The one where you put your finger in it.
Yes. Yes.
And then after you drink the wine, you put pennies in there.
Yes, definitely. Or quarters or whatever.
You collect your spare change.
Yeah. For sure.
Anywho, yeah. So, how was your week? I haven't seen you guys in a whole 7 days.
Well, speaking of quinceañeras, I checked in my hotel when I went away for the weekend. And there was a whole ass, like, party going on.
Really?
And we, like, with, like, mariachi band and the whole thing. And I, like, peeked in. I'm like, oh, shit, we're about to have a party. And so we didn't crash our party. But they had all the buffet stuff was out in the hall. And I was like, bitch, because there was, like, all this Spanish food.
Oh my
I'm like,
God.
do you think we can have Spanish food for dinner? But then, of course, I would never do that. So we had left, and I went to this super fun safari, which I'll tell you about in a minute. But then we wanted to have Mexican food because
of the food.
that was on my brain, you know?
Right.
It scratched my brain, so I said, let's Google. And there was a little Mexican restaurant right next to our hotel, which I thought was called El Toro. And I was very confident about that. And so I Googled it from where we were. We were at this like little antique shop. And then it took us right to this place. And she was looking up the menu and whatever. And the menu looked so good. We went in there and I was like, this is not the place that was right by our hotel. There was another restaurant that was like 15 minutes away called El Torio.
Okay.
I guess there was an E in there. The best fucking Mexican food I ever had in my fucking life. My ass wasn't even hot on the chair before a plate of hot chips and salsa. Hot. Were on my table. I said, did you know I was coming, sir? Like, oh my God. He spoke Spanish to me and I was like, I don't know. Yes, sure. But then this girl came and helped. She like was like, stop eating chips. You're not going to have any room for your food. And I was like, I don't care.
Right.
This is so good. The chairs were the craziest chairs it was like every chair was a different color. Like it was the craziest. The food was so fucking good. And we're like, why is it 7 hours away from my house? It's so fucking good.
Where were you guys?
I was in Roanoke, Virginia.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. And so we went to this safari. We were leaving the next day. We went to this place called a Natural Bridge, which was this big, giant, like 200-foot, I guess like a river had run through it for billions of years or whatever.
Oh my God, that's a movie.
And it made this huge bridge. It was really cool.
Right.
Yes, it is a movie.
I am a little drunk.
And then you walk down, it was a little hike, but then a couple miles down was a safari where you like get in your car and they give you feed and you can like feed animals, right? And like emus and like ostriches and zebras and llamas. I don't know if they were llamas or alpacas. I can't tell the difference.
Okay.
Cows, all these things. Like a zebra literally stuck its head in my car and like put its head on my girlfriend's shoulder. Like it was so fun. I did get attacked by an ostrich, but you know, you could feed giraffes. You could just give them lettuce like this and they just come right up to you. It was the fucking coolest thing.
With their long ass tongues?
Yes, for like $30. They had sloths and birds. They give you these little things and birds just like landed all over you. Yeah, it was a fucking amazing.
Wow.
It was called a Virginia Safari. I highly, highly recommend it. It was so fun. And we like literally like, oh, we'll just go on the way home. And we left at noon. I thought, okay, we'll be on the road by like 2 at the latest. Right. We didn't even get on the road till 7:30 because we like could not stop like feeding the animals and like. Wow. And then we ate at a Hardee's, which we don't have Hardee's here. I know that that's like a thing across the country or wherever. I had never eaten at a Hardee's.
Okay, tell me about the Hardee's.
Slap your fucking mama so good. Bitch. I had a mushroom Swiss burger on a potato bun. The fuck? The fuck, McDonald's? Are you okay?
Wow.
It was so fucking good. They had onion rings that were like...
To be clear, McDonald's is not a fast food restaurant. It's more like a real estate holdings.
I suppose, but...
Real estate holdings, because them burgers, you can't compare burgers to McDonald's.
No, I was very upset. Yeah. I was like, really, like, this is a good burger. Wow. It had, like, a fucking jus on it. Like
a jus?
Yes. What is that?
Not a Jew. A jus.
A jus.
A little sauce.
It had, like, a gravy. It was so good. I'm like, fuck, where's the closest Hardee's?
What? Where's the closest
I don't know.
Hardee's
They're far.
Wow.
They're not anywhere around here. Delicious. So good.
Wow.
Very upsetting.
That's
It was very upsetting.
Wow.
But I had a nice weekend. How about you?
I celebrated my children's birthdays.
Yes.
My children are exacay 7 days apart.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Oh, that's always been fun.
Yeah. 7 days in like 10 years, right?
Right. 7 days and 9 years.
Oh, 9 years. Yeah. Okay.
So my daughter turned 29 last Friday. And we did an escape room.
Yes.
And we did a family escape room, right? So we went, and I've always said this, my sister, she went to special school and everything because she was really, really, really smart. She's got a really high IQ.
Yeah.
Believe it or not.
No, I believe it.
Yeah. So she has like this memory that she remembers everything, like remembers the most random details. Yeah. She's really bright. So we went with her and my daughter's husband, who is
fiance.
Yeah, fiance. Mm-hmm. Who is he's a doctor of physical therapy.
Yes.
All right. So you think he knows a thing or two, right?
Yeah. Smart cookie.
And me, I have a master's degree, and it was
and me
right. I have a master's degree. My daughter's, she's fairly intelligent. My niece is fairly intelligent. So we went with an intelligent group.
Oh,
we thought, right?
Oh no, you didn't get out.
It was. Wait a minute. Let me just tell you. Okay.
Did your mom go?
So wait, no, my mom couldn't go.
Okay.
My mom couldn't go. She wasn't feeling well. So she couldn't go. But hindsight being 2020, if my mom would have gone, that would have been rice with ass. That would have been a hot buttered mess. That would have been just like fucking, yeah. So we go in and we're like, okay, $45 a person. That's a lot of money for 1 hour of entertainment.
Yeah.
So we go in and we're like, okay, we look online to make the reservation. The different rooms are by percentage of solving. So the one room was like 5% solve rate.
Okay.
The one that we chose was 10 to 15% solve rate.
Okay.
And then like another one that's like easier.
Okay,
slightly
okay,
easier.
Gotcha.
Okay. So we took the 10 to 15% solve rate and we had an appointment. So when you go to the escape room that we went to, they brief you. Everybody leaves the room and it's just you and you get like a briefing. And
individually?
No, like your group.
Okay.
They tell you like what you can and can't do. They take your license. They tell you that you're not allowed to share the secrets of the room and whatever. So we were like, oh shit, this is serious, right? And then they tell you everything in the room is a clue except for when it's not a clue. And if it's a clue, it should work easy. So you're not like hulking anything. They're not going to ask you to move heavy furniture. Okay. It's going to be easy, right? Yeah. Easy to to figure out. Like the lock isn't going to lock on you or anything like that. You're either right or you're wrong, right? What they don't tell you is...
Are you about to share the secrets of the room?
No, what they don't tell you is all the shit that they don't tell you. Okay? Like, for instance, if there's an umbrella, the tip of the umbrella might come off and there might be a clue inside. Okay. And it looks like a fucking room, And then they start... So, throughout the thing, they're watching you on camera. Yeah. So what we did was we split up. and each one of us took a clue, like a different thing to try to decipher, right?
Okay.
I started deciphering a few things. Like, everybody had a job. But you don't know if they go together. You just don't fucking know.
Yeah.
So everybody's like running around the room like crazy, bumping into each other. Does this have anything to do? Shouting out numbers. Try this lock. Try that. So 19 minutes into the fucking chaos, we solved all the puzzle.
Okay.
Right? We unlocked the last door.
Okay.
We open the fucking door. We're screaming, jumping up and down. We're like, fuck, we're geniuses. We open the door. It's a fucking brick wall. It says, look behind you.
Oh, no.
So behind us is a fucking bookcase, right? So we pull at the bookcase and it fucking turns into doors and it's a whole motherfucking room.
Oh, no.
And we're fucking panicking because we're like, shit, we only have 19 minutes left of this 60 minutes.
Oh, shit.
So it's a whole nother room. So within 15 minutes, we solve 8 clues. Undid 8 locks. 1 lock left. There's 2 minutes. I'm solving the fucking clues. And I'm like doing the switches. I didn't realize there's a fucking another set of switches that I had to turn on and off on the other fucking side of the bookcase. So fucking the guy comes out and we're like, we want to kill ourselves. We had 1 fucking lock. We're on the last clue. God. And he comes in and he was like, you guys are so close. and he's like, you had to do the switches on the other side. And I was like, motherfucker. We were so bitter. And he was like, oh, you guys did so good. And I was like, what's the meaning of this? And what's the meaning of that? So there's several clues to each clue.
Yeah.
To each lock. There's several clues. So you might be stuck on one thing when really, if you just keep looking, there will be another clue.
Yeah.
That'll be easier to solve than the one thing that you were doing, right? I was so fucking heated. And then the door, you think that that's the exit?
Yeah.
It's not. It's fucking not. The exit is some random piece of furniture that turns into a door that you fucking exit through.
Did he show it to you?
Yes. I was so fucking annoyed. And then they take pictures of you as you leave.
As a loser?
Like, as a loser. Yeah. Oh my God. It was so fucking fun to see everybody, like, everybody's flipping heads working together and we're flipping out and we're like, oh my God, we're so dumb. And
that sounds like so much fun.
Yeah. So now my sister wants to do a redemption and we're looking for another escape room. Escape rooms might just be our thing now.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're just like,
you're into it.
Yeah. Because like, we figured like, okay, we really were smart and like we felt smart, right?
Yeah.
But some of them are made to be so impossible to solve, bro.
That's really funny.
And for $45 an hour, per person,
yeah.
You want to get your like, you want to win.
You want to win. Yeah.
So, you want to prove to people that you're smart. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So afterwards, we went through the casino and through the casino floor to go to Chicky and Pete's, right? So we passed by, like, we're at the Tropicana. There's a lot of restaurants and everything. So we passed by the casino floor and I'm like, smells like Italian food is in the area. You know what I mean? Because it smells like Parmesan cheese. Natalie goes to me. She's like, Mom, that's fucking throw up.
Oh my God, bitch, what the fuck?
I was like, oh my God, I thought that was Parmesan cheese.
That is sad.
So then we go to Chicky and Pete's. That's where we decided to eat, right?
Yeah.
And we had an ocean view. It was so fun. But then my niece says the last time I went to Chicky and Pete's in the other one down the street from us, she's like, a rat ran right out of the freaking, right under our table.
The way I would hit the roof.
For real. And I said, did you eat there? She was like, no, we just went there for drinks. And I was like, oh my God, I feel so much better about this Chicky and Pete's. It was so fucking gross. And then the carpet. I'm sorry. Anytime you go to a restaurant
for real,
and there's carpeting on the floor, that shit's going to smell like Parmesan cheese.
Yeah, except unless it's the sombrero on your way to...
South of the border.
Yeah, south of the border on your way.
Really?
That is, hands down, I'm not fucking around with you. Inside that sombrero, I had the best steak of my life. I'm not fucking kidding you. I had the best steak of my fucking life in that motherfucking
Inside that sombrero.
I'm not kidding you. When we walked in, I was like, ooh, this carpet looks sketchy as fuck. And I was like, oh, God. Like, there was like a salad bar, like a gross little salad bar and shit. No. It was the best steak I ever had in my life. Not kidding you.
Wow.
Delicious.
Wow.
I think about it sometimes.
I can't go to a restaurant and have carpet smells.
It's a mess.
Just can't.
Yeah,
it's fucking gross, bro. So we had, entirely too expensive chicken and Pete's fries. An order of fries is like $20, $22.
Way too much. I would never eat a chicken and pizza.
And then the waitress was so apathetic. Like the most apathy that you could.
I think your family should go to one of those restaurants where they make fun of you. I think you guys would really enjoy that.
I don't know.
You know what I mean?
I don't know.
We went to one in Boston and they wrote on my hat that said Miss Trailer Park 1997. No! It was fucking hilarious.
Oh my God.
It's so
Dana.
funny.
That would have been so hurt.
I was laughing so hard.
What would they say about us?
I don't know. They were like ripping the girls because I had like my nieces with me and they were like, "Where'd you get your eyeliner from? The dollar store?" Like they were just ripping on them. I was like, "Oh fuck."
I might have to give that
I think you guys would really get a kick out of that. Yeah.
My niece is very sensitive though.
Is she?
She would not be able to take that.
No.
I don't know. She's really sensitive.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I saw a TikTok where they took like a grandma to one and they didn't tell her that it was one of the She's like, I need to speak to the manager. God, I should do that to my mother.
Oh my God, no. You shouldn't do that to your mother. That would end very poorly for you, my friend.
Yeah, that really would.
Yeah, that would turn on you. So
God.
that was my weekend. So because we had something to share with you.
Yeah.
There will be no number 2 corner this week.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
All right.
No, we're going to skip number 2 corner. We'll put it on Patreon. And I have a number 2 story.
We have a number 2 for next week.
We have a poop corner now.
Yeah.
And it's about toilets and the way that they, moved throughout society from having been a rich person's, commode. All the way to the modern day toilet.
Really?
But that will be on Patreon. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
I'll have another poop story for you next week.
All right, fine. Fine, if you insist.
That's only if we have a slow news day.
All right, fair enough.
What is Cause of Crime? Well, Cause of Crime is a true crime podcast that focuses on the cause of each crime. We focus on the killers. We focus on the disappearances. We focus on the murderers. We focus on parties that could be responsible. We dive into theories. We dive into different things that could have happened. But we also give our opinions. And we banter. And we talk about it. And we give different points of view because we're different people. Our primary focus at Cause of Crime is to focus on the victims and their stories and keep them alive. Keep their stories going. Keep their memories going. If they're long gone from this world or we just don't even know what happened to them, we want to keep them talked about. And that is our singular goal. My name is Tracy, and I'm the primary host and creator of Cause of Crime. I created this podcast for this reason, and one reason only, to keep talking about people that need to be talked about. To keep doing this and using my voice to make sure I'm making some kind of difference. So if you'd like to join us and dissect each cause of crime with us, you are more than welcome to do so. My co-hosts are Dan and Chris, and they alternate each week. You can check us out on all podcasting platforms at 11 a.m. on every Wicked Wednesday, and you can join the Abnormals. It's fun here. Join us, won't you?
I'm Jackie Moranti, and I produce a podcast called Cause of Death, 100 Seconds to Midnight. Have you ever read or watched any post-apocalyptic fiction? Were you one of the first people to see The Road or I Am Legend when they came out? Do you wonder if those things could really happen? Could the world as we know it be toppled by a disease, a global crisis, or a natural disaster? I assure you that it could. My show talks about the precursors to apocalyptic events. I like to call it pre-apocalyptic nonfiction. I talk about history and how we never learned from it, the present and how we tend to ignore every warning sign, and the future and what it will mean if we don't take care of our resources. The hands of the doomsday clock have been set at 100 seconds to midnight for 3 years now. Can we make the hands turn back? Cause of Death, 100 Seconds to Midnight can be found wherever you listen to podcasts.
So today I got my story from nihilobstat.info. It's a blog. I got most of my story from that. And then I got some other stuff from history.com and activisthistory.com. Edward Francis Murphy, known as the Skull, was born in 1926 to Italian and Irish parents, and he was raised in New York City's Greenwich Village. As a child, he was often in trouble. When he was 9 years old, he attacked a neighborhood fruit stand out on the corner of Bleecker and Christopher Street, and he trashed the stand. He was just...
Why?
I don't know.
What do you have against fruit?
Well...
Oh.
He's a gay activist.
Oh, okay.
He's the gay Avenger, so maybe he hates fruit.
Okay. Wait, is he pro or anti?
He's complicated.
Okay.
He's complicated.
All right.
So yeah, he destroys this fruit stand when he's 9 years old. When he's 11, he's shining shoes for money, and a nasty Irish cop laid into him and broke his shoe shine box. So he bashed the cop over the head with a milk bottle.
And they were glass.
Yeah, they were.
Thick glass.
Yeah, they were. He had been thrown out of his Catholic school, and he was sent to reform school. After he was released, he worked briefly at a gay bar called the Pink Elephant, and then he enlisted in the
The Pink Elephant. I love that.
He enlisted in the U.S. Army, where he fought in France during World War II. So after leaving the Army in 1946, he worked as a bouncer and a doorman at various gay bars in Manhattan. During this time, he also became a professional wrestler, known as the Villainous Skull Murphy. His aggressive style and signature headbutt move made him a natural in the ring. He would later say in an interview, "I had a tough top."
Okay.
So the Skull was always the bad guy. He was identified by his special death hold. He would stomp on heads of other unconscious wrestlers. He would throw chairs at old ladies who were booing him.
Oh my
He would
God.
rip the microphone out of the announcer's hand. He was the bad guy.
Oh, I love that for him.
But wrestling wasn't enough money, so Murphy teamed up with a gay friend to rob dentists' offices. They targeted them for shipments of gold for, teeth fillings and shit.
Oh, there was that much?
Yeah.
Gold fillings?
Yeah, after 73 dental robberies, they were finally caught.
God. Okay, how much gold did they get? 1 ounce?
I don't know, probably quite a bit. Because this shit still goes on. I know someone who robbed a dentist office.
Oh my God.
And he robbed them for a diamond drill bit. And he got, a felony because it was over $10,000. It was
Holy shit.
Yeah, people be robbing dentists and shit.
And who do they sell it to? Other dentists?
I guess they can melt down the gold and, make jewelry out of it.
Yeah, but if it's a diamond drill
Well,
bit,
that was that was in 2002, so I don't know. That was, maybe not quite that bad.
Just silly.
2010 or something.
Okay.
But regardless,
Uh-huh.
there's money to be made in the thieving of dentists, I guess.
Okay.
A syndicate newspaper columnist, Walter Winchell, somehow got wind that the culprits were gay, and he ran a story in his column that said, "Two swishes with blonde hair. Whoops, the notorious toothache bandits." I guess that's an insult.
Two swishes?
Who were... So Ed found out who worked on the columnist's teeth and stole Walter Winchell's plates, I guess, for his teeth. Ed and his partner held up the dentist.
Uh-huh.
The dentist, had tears in his eyes and was like, "Please don't take my diamond ring. My father had given this to me for my bar mitzvah. You can take whatever you want.
Right.
Please don't take this ring." So Ed, being the upstanding citizen that he is, he let the dentist keep the ring, and he left with a bag full of gold teeth.
Okay.
Later, he saw a headline in the Daily Mirror that said, "Dentist cons robbers out of ring." So Ed went back and beat him up and took the ring.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. I was like, "You're not going to play me out, bitch."
Right.
So Ed spent 10 years in prison where he spent a lot of time in isolation due to his sexuality.
Oh.
So Ed is a gay man.
Okay.
After his release, he worked as a doorman and a bouncer at several mafia-owned gay bars and was known as Mother Murphy to the young male runaways and sex workers that he cared for, even though sometimes he pimped them out for tips. So, in the early 1960s, he was hired as a hotel detective at the New York City Hilton, where he became involved in the infamous Chickens and Bull extortion ring.
Wait.
The name refers to an extortion ring of cops and gay criminals that preyed on prominent closeted gay men in the 1960s.
Wait. So, who are the chickens and who are the bulls?
Corrupt police officials and police impersonators, known as bulls, use young male sex workers, called chickens, to blackmail wealthy, important, or closeted pillars of the establishment across the country. So the ring victimized thousands of men, including politicians, government officials, military officers, film, TV, entertainment celebrities, producers, prep school, university professors, headmasters, trustees, surgeons, scientists, business executives, and priests.
There are gay men everywhere.
Yes.
Yes.
Like everywhere.
Yeah.
So most of the chickens were teenage boys from homophobic or abusive families. They were runaways,
right?
You know, looking for sanctuary in New York City or whatever,
or place
in big
to belong.
cities. Yeah, this went on all across the country, like Chicago, Los Angeles,
right?
Like, this happened everywhere.
They were looking to belong somewhere and ended up getting exploited.
Yeah, and they were also looking for safety. You know, many of them were homeless, and
right.
They survived by turning tricks in the back of trucks and on waterfront piers, seedy hotels, or getting pimped out by strangers. So what would happen was a man would travel to a large city like New York, Chicago, or LA, and he would request the services of a male sex worker. Once the blackmail victim and his chicken were alone in the hotel room, one of two things would happen.
So were those the bulls?
What? No, the people who were
the customers of the sex workers.
No, they would like the cops and the people that like impersonated cops were the bulls.
Okay.
So I'm going to tell you what
I thought they were pigs.
Well.
I'm sorry.
Fair point. So once the blackmail victim and his chicken were in the hotel room, one of two things would happen. The sex worker would steal the man's wallet and run out of the hotel, or a hotel detective, quote unquote, like Ed the Skull Murphy, would burst into the room dressed as a cop and demand the cash for not like arresting the victim.
Oh, shit.
So the stolen wallet would be turned over to the ringleaders, who would give it to the corrupt law enforcement workers that they, like their associates they were working with, and they would compile information against the victim.
Oh, shit.
If the John was rich, famous, or from a prominent family, two members of law enforcement would travel to the man's home or his place of business and threaten him with public exposure or arrest, unless they gave him cash to make it disappear. But most of the time, these weren't really cops, or a lot of the time
they're just
weren't.
pretending.
Yeah,
they're impersonating.
Right. So the men would pay rather than have their, queerness be disclosed. As the NYPD and the FBI pursued their investigation in 1965 and 66, they found that the blackmail ring operated in large cities across the country, and there were about 24 chickens and bulls working the job across all of the U.S. So August 5th, 1965, the New York Times ran a story. A 39-year-old house detective in the New York Hilton was arrested yesterday as the leader of a gang that had extorted a total of $100,000 from rich playboys and executives. The house detective, Ed Murphy, was held in bail for $7,500 for his hearing on August 13th. He was charged with extortion and impersonating an officer.
What year was this?
66.
Okay, so in the 60s.
Yeah. Some of the prominent men that were victims of the shakedown were Congressman Peter Freilenhausen, Republican from New Jersey.
A Republican? You don't say.
Who ultimately paid $50,000 in blackmail money. Another was Admiral William Church, a cousin of powerful Senator Frank Church, Democrat from Idaho.
Oh, Democrat. You don't say.
And he was the head of the New York Naval Yard in Brooklyn. When the admiral was approached by the NYPD to testify before the grand jury, he was initially arrogant and abrupt. He said he would not accompany them to New York, but he would travel there the next day. Instead, he drove to a motel in Maryland and ended his own life.
Yeah, because he was gay and closeted, and he would have had to...
He would have had to leave. He was an admiral in the Navy.
Yeah,
It
was
was going to ruin his life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Admiral Church's shakedown had started several months before, after his wallet had been robbed by a chicken at the Astor Hotel in New York City. He'd handed over $5,000 in cash before he put a bullet in his own head. Most of the victims were wealthy enough to pay the blackmailers. In a New York City article published March 3rd, 1966, titled Nationwide Ring Preying on Prominent Deviants, wrote about a celebrity believed to be Liberace.
Oh shit, not Liberace. He was the straightest straight man that ever straighted.
A TV celebrity, a twinkling star who has millions of female fans all over the world, refused to take the witness stand. However, he did tell investigators that he paid the blackmailers more than $20,000 in cash. I can afford to lose the money, he said, but I hope they die of cancer.
Oh my god. Didn't he die of cancer?
No, he was shot, I think.
Liberace?
No, I'm thinking of...
You're thinking of Versace.
Versace. They rhyme, but... and they're gay men. So the ring gets busted because a man gets caught impersonating an officer in Grand Central Station. And during his questioning, the dude spills the beans. And that leads to the arrest of our boy, the Skull Murphy.
Right.
During his questioning, the NYPD wanted to take him in the back and beat the shit out of him for impersonating an officer because he was found with a fake badge on him. But the detective, James McDonald, steps in, protects him, and he gets Ed to flip and become an informant for them. The leader of the blackmail ring was a 51-year-old Chicago police detective, John J. Pine.
So he was a fucking police detective, one of their own.
Yes.
Wow, you little fucker.
Yeah, and he was the head of this whole thing across the whole country.
Wow.
Yeah. And so Pine joined the Chicago Police Department in 1938. He served until his arrest in June 24th, 1966, when he was picked up by the FBI. The agents found a drawer full of police badges and identification from almost every state in the country.
That's a feat.
Yeah. As well as a typewriter that matched some of the keys from documents that they had found, compiling evidence against him. The blackmail ring was first publicly exposed on February 17, 1966, when 17 suspects were indicted and 9 were arrested, including Ed the Skull Murphy.
They were all part of the Chickens and Bulls ring?
Yes.
Okay.
So while the ring was a lot of gay men tormenting and blackmailing and extorting other gay men, it seems like Ed was somewhat closeted at this point. He had boyfriends, he slept with men, but in his day-to-day life, he was closeted still, which is ironic.
So he had a beard?
I think he was just single, but he came up in a really Catholic family, and he's a tough guy from New York, you know, so I don't think he's out. Yeah.
Okay.
Considering he's literally outing people.
Yeah.
So there is some debate about his actual involvement. He would later claim that he only joined the ring to work undercover to help the gay community. This is most likely him trying to revise history.
Right.
Records suggest that he was arrested and he flipped for the NYPD and the FBI to avoid jail. In an excerpt of a book called The Mafia and the Gay States, which I think I might want to read because there's a lot from this.
Right.
There's a quote. Only after Murphy was hit with 4 indictments by the Manhattan DA and another one by the federal prosecutors did he flip in 1966 to become a cooperating witness to implicate his co-defendants and to save his own ass from hard time. The author says, according to the FBI debriefing form, some of the men Murphy threatened were an IRS agent, a university professor, and a Catholic Monsignor. Murphy collected $55,000 from the Monsignor alone.
Damn, he was living high off the hog.
Yeah.
Because $55,000 in 1960s?
Yeah. Yeah, and they were doing that from everyone. You
could buy a house for freaking $40 back then.
Yeah, really. By the end of the investigation in 1967, 30 men had been convicted and imprisoned on charges of extortion and impersonating police officers. On September 22nd, 1967, Ed pled guilty for his involvement in the extortion scheme and was sentenced to 5 years imprisonment, but suspended and placed on 5 years probation. He also pled guilty to the New York State indictments against him, but served no jail time. Because of his cooperation, his sentence is suspended, or was it? It is clear that Ed became an informant. We know that. He says so himself. Whether he volunteered or he was coerced, his name disappears from the newspapers right after the first coverage. He's never mentioned again in the newspaper, except that first article that we hear about.
Because at that point, he was an informant.
Right.
Okay.
And there were 9 stories after that he's never, mentioned in. With his criminal record I mean, he'd been getting in trouble since he was a little kid, and his clear involvement, why was he able to get away with no punishment? Some people believe that it may be due to the often rumored homosexual blackmail photos he had in possession of FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover.
No.
Yes. Ed would say that Hoover was one of my sisters.
What?
Yes.
Ooh, I love that. Saucy.
Yeah. So it's believed that Hoover would regularly deny the existence of the mafia. He never went after them. And most people believe that it's because they had dirt on him about him being gay. In 1978, Ed is quoted in an interview saying he had presidents by the balls. He had a record on everybody and his brother. And that's true. Like, if you listen to any fucking podcast about J. Edgar Hoover, like, he was a fucking monster. Like, an utter fucking monster.
In what way?
He ran, the FBI with an iron fist. He ran the Red Scare and the Lavender Scare, which I was asking you before if you knew what that was. So, like, during the Cold War, if you were suspected of being a communist, anybody could say, I think Nitty is a communist. You'd lose your job, you'd lose your house, you could, whatever. And that was called the Red Scare, right? So it was like, and J. Edgar Hoover, the FBI, the CIA, whatever, they ran this whole thing and they terrorized people in the media. They terrorized regular people. They hung people. People were killed. Like, people were executed. Yeah, like,
wow,
for
being communist?
Like, potential communists. There was, like, sometimes no even proof of it.
Wow.
There was also another sect of that called the Lavender Scare, where they did this about, like, being gay and being queer. Where teachers couldn't keep their jobs and doctors would get fired and whatever. And they all were a part of this, like, Lavender Scare, this Red Scare. And to think that J. Edgar Hoover and Roy Cohn and all of these, like, bigwigs at the FBI were all not only gay, but, like, at the time they were called cross-dressers, there was, like, evidence of him, like, in a black frilly dress with, like a little corset on.
Oh, my God.
Yeah,
he must have been so pretty.
Yeah, but here he is, like, destroying lives,
Wow.
It's something worth...
It's so much self-hate.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. And control, right? Like, J. Edgar Hoover, like, he, like, died as the head of the FBI. Like, he never quit. Like, Hoover remained head of the Bureau until his death at the age of 77 in 1972. Anyway, none of that is the point of this story, right? I just think it's important to be mindful that the people who are at the very tippy top of tormenting American citizens with the Red and Lavender Scare were probably just as deviant as the people of the lives that they were trying to ruin,
Right, but they weren't deviant.
No, but in their minds, they're like, they literally called them deviants in the newspaper.
Yeah, but I mean, nowadays you have preachers that are fucking having random sex in like, little glory holes and shit.
Right,
you know what I mean? And then they go and on Sunday they stand in their pulpit and they
and that's been happening since the beginning of time. Like, but it's just like, you got a fucking brass set of fucking cojones.
I mean,
to fucking literally go across the country and, like, ruin people's lives when you're, like, in a pretty purple dress, like, you got a lot of fucking nerve, dude.
When you're wearing panties underneath that suit.
Yeah, for sure. So anyway, back to Ed and what he gets up to after all of this. So he becomes a bouncer at the infamous Stonewall Inn. So the Stonewall Inn in Greenwich Village, New York City, started its life as Bonnie Stonewall, and it was named after an autobiography by Ruth Fuller Field. The book was incredibly real in its descriptions of lesbian love and sexual attraction. In 1967, the building was reopened as a gay bar by Fat Tony Loria, the son of a mafioso and a few of his partners, I guess. His associates, maybe one would call them.
He was gay?
I don't think so. I think he was just, like, mafia guy. Maybe he was. I don't know. But he's a mafia dude.
Oh.
So a lot of these gay clubs, and we'll talk about it, are run by the mafia.
Really? Why?
Yes. I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
One of his associates was Matty the Horse Yaniello, the acting boss of the Genovese family.
Genovese?
I don't fucking know. He was known to be the one who controlled most of New York City's gay bars and clubs. So the New York City State Liquor Authority refused a liquor license to anyone that catered to openly homosexual people. This created an opening for organized crime to run the bars without a license and pay off the police. So the Stonewall Inn was a dump. The bar had no running water. The glasses were washed in a bucket.
Ugh.
Urine soaked on the bathroom floor.
Ugh.
There were no fire exits. But the Stonewall had a special draw. It was one of the only gay bars that permitted dancing. From an upper room and a back entrance, the Stonewall offered drugs and male prostitutes. Like, it had a vibe, you know?
Right.
One of the bartenders, a chubby blonde drag queen named Maggie Jiggs, presided over the main bar and sold drugs in addition to Stonewall's watered down drinks. And like they were describing, like they would have all these different registers, like this one would be for drinks, this one would be for cigarettes, and when the cops would raid, they would like get all the money out of two of the registers,
right?
So that the cops would only steal the money from one. Like it was really smart because they knew that they were like gonna constantly being raided and shit.
Oh shit.
So they had like things set up for
it. It reminds me, like, remember when we used to watch Bugs Bunny and the cops would raid the bars?
Yes.
And then, like, the speakeasy would, like, flip over and, like, it would be, like, everybody would just be, like, you know, doing regular stuff.
Yeah, like, brushing their mustaches with little combs.
I mean, Bugs Bunny was really woke.
Bugs Bunny was on some shit. For real.
Right?
Bugs Bunny loved to dress in female clothes.
Yes.
Always.
And do the speakeasy thing where, like, the cops would come and they would flip the bar over.
One of my favorite, like, Bugs Bunny things is, I don't know if it's Yosemite Sam or somebody's, like, making a big pot of water and they're, like, cutting carrots up and putting it in. And Bugs Bunny's got a little towel on his arm and he is getting into the tub and he's going, and he thinks it's a tub. It's really like a pot of water. And he's like putting his toe in his...
He thinks it's a spa.
I think about that all the time. I love Bugs Bunny. That's so good. So anyway, Ed the Skull Murphy had been prominent in gay bars since 1946. As we all know, the times were not welcoming for queer Americans, and in most cases, it was across the country, it was illegal to be gay. So obviously, queer people flocked to these places like Stonewall Inn or wherever so that they could express themselves openly and socialize in a semi-safe space. Thanks to activist efforts, laws against serving alcohol to gay people were overturned in 1966, but engaging in gay behavior in public, such as holding hands, kissing, or dancing with someone of the same sex, was still illegal. The police harassment of gay bars still continued. So the crime syndicate saw a profit to catering to the shunned gay clientele, and by the mid-1960s, the Genovese crime family controlled most of Greenwich Village and the gay bars. In 1966, they purchased Stonewall, they cheaply renovated it, and reopened it as a gay bar.
Did it have running water?
No.
Still didn't have running water.
This is how they left it. Like it was a dump, yeah. It was registered at one of those as like a private bottle bar so that you can like bring your own liquor, but they couldn't serve you. Mm-hmm. Of course they still did, but patrons were supposed to bring their own liquor, and club attendees had to sign their names in a book to enter to like maintain the club's like false exclusivity. They're saying like, oh, it's an exclusive club.
Okay.
So they would sign their names. If they were smart, they would use a fake name because these motherfuckers, including Ed, had no problems blackmailing the shit out of anyone they felt was a wealthy target.
Wow. And
not just like dudes that had like $100 in their pocket. They would like have them come in and they would sit down and talk to the bartender, and you'd find out like they were like bigwigs on Wall Street, or they were politicians, and they were like being grimy and they were being shady that they were in this bar.
Right.
So they'd be like, oh, I got something for that ass.
Right.
You know, there is something there where it's like, okay, we don't love, right? We don't love, but we do love, you know.
But how dare you be a passer of laws that suppress us?
Right.
And then come in here and want to be part of us.
Right. Right. That's the biggest problem. Right. So, like, there is a part of me where I'm a little like, get them.
100% of me says,
yeah, just get them. It's fine.
Yeah.
So, the crime family bribed New York City's 6th police precinct to ignore the activities occurring in the club. Nonetheless, Stonewall Inn quickly became an important Greenwich Village institution, largely because it was cheap to enter. It welcomed drag queens who didn't always find safe places in other gay bars, and it, you know, young kids who were runaways, they could afford to get in, and then they could stay there all night. And, you know, they built a community there, you know. Raids were still a fact of life, but usually the corrupt cops would tip off the mafia-run bars so that, you know, people would have a heads up that it was coming, and they could get a lot of their alcohol out, or if like they were dressed in drag, they could change their clothes or whatever. It's possible that the night of the infamous Stonewall riots, the first raid, that they were there partly because of Ed. They had actually raided Stonewall like the night before, 2 nights before, and a riot didn't start. But it was believed that he was involved in more blackmailing, which we do know, as well as stealing of government bonds. It was like a whole thing about like they were meeting these rich people in the bar and then they were getting them to buy bonds and they were like, I don't know, counterfeiting them and selling them. Like Interpol was involved because like fake bonds were like coming up across seas. It was like this whole thing. And it got found out that like it was someone at the Stonewall.
See, but that's where I have a problem. So they turned this already underground scene that could have maintained, you know, on the verge of the legalities of it, right? But then they went and they drew more attention to them
because they were doing crimes.
They were doing other, you know, they were doing drugs. They were, you know what I mean? If they would have just kept it on the up and up.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, right? Like you're also dealing like be mindful that like they're dealing with the mafia. Like these guys.
No, yeah.
This is just like one of the arms of the mafia, right? Like so, yeah, they're like making a lot of money off these queer kids or whatever. But like, you know, at this point, Ed is just like out for himself, right? Like he's making money off these guys.
But it seemed like everybody involved was just 100%,
100%. Yeah. So in the early hours of June 28th, 1969, a few hours after Judy Garland's funeral, that seemed relevant for some reason, the police raided the club.
Well, Judy Garland was like,
I mean, you know,
their national treasure.
Yes, imagine.
Yeah.
So everybody's mourning Judy Garland.
I mean.
And the fucking cops come in and bust up their, like, memorial service.
Oh, they were just like
get
fuck.
fucked.
Yeah, they were just like, fuck these guys.
Yes. So the force was led by Deputy Inspector Seymour Pine and carried out without the knowledge of the local precinct because they believed that they were on the take, which they were. So even though they were there for Murphy, possibly the police were brutal to the patrons, right? So they started the operation by sending 2 police women posing as lesbians and 2 plainclothes policemen.
They were posing.
Yeah. It's literally in quotes, yeah. The undercover women from the Chinatown's 5th precinct were chosen because of their size, one large and one petite, to be a butch femme couple.
Cindy and Danny.
Pine became worried when the 2 policewomen didn't return. So they didn't come out of the bar, Pine said. Time passed and it seemed unnatural. We didn't realize that they were just having a good time.
They were in the back getting it on.
It got to the point that we thought they were in trouble or had forgotten what they were supposed to do. Ed Murphy would later recall that the 2 cops were drunk. Even the policewoman was half crooked. She was a Polynesian broad, and she'd been coming in there as a dyke. Jesus Christ, Ed. I was one of the 2 men employed as a bouncer at Stonewall on the night of that celebrated raid. I was told that the monthly payoff had been given to the cops was about $1,200. They had already gotten that. And sometimes they would ask for frequent cases of booze. The inspector got his $12,000 the very night of the raid using his chauffeur as a bagman. So like they didn't expect this because like they just got paid off, you know?
Right, but it wasn't $12,000, it was $1,200.
$1,200,
right?
I'm sorry, $1,200. Stonewall's was an after-hour premises, not a bar, and it had 2 big oak doors, rather like a monastery.
Oh, I love that. They must have been beautiful.
It's cool. On the inside were steel doors. Inside the premises, there was a wishing well in the middle of the dance floor, and an upstairs area for the mob. Like, you didn't go up there. A Polynesian policewoman was already inside when the doors were slapped shut against the raid. Maggie, the drag queen behind the bar, is said to have thrown the first can of beer at the police. Marcia picked up dog shit and threw it at the cop's face. Maggie got out with the money. She put the money under her apron and just said, "I sell cigarettes here," and she got away with it so the cops didn't get any. Meanwhile, Frankie, the other bouncer, and I were handcuffed by the cops. In the melee, we jumped into a cab. It turned out that the cabbie was gay, and he sped us off to Keller's bar. This was an S&M crowd, and they found keys that fit the handcuffs.
Oh my god! I love that so much.
If the main objective was to, for the Stonewall raid was to apprehend Ed, it was a total failure because he bounced. He slipped away. even though he was handcuffed, and it makes you wonder if the police were totally incompetent or if Ed was tipped off by the raid, by one of the police officers who were there to infiltrate.
Right.
I'm like, get the fuck out of here, dude.
Right.
Fury at both the police and the mafia fueled the crowds. There were masquerade laws at the time where people couldn't be caught in more than 3 articles of clothing of the opposite sex. You were assigned gender at birth, or whatever, yeah.
All right, so what 3 things?
You couldn't. So if you had 3 articles of clothing that were men's clothing, you would be in trouble. Or if you had 3 articles of, it could be anything. If you had a necklace, stockings, and a bra on, I don't know, whatever.
Okay.
If they were traditionally feminine clothes, they would arrest you.
Okay.
Officers would...
So you could wear a bra with some slacks and get away with it.
I mean, yeah, I guess. The law was 3, right?
Right. A thong under a suit.
Yeah, if you had a thong on, maybe nobody would know.
Right. No, but if it, poked...
The officers who were suspecting people of cross-dressing would fondle the genitalia of a suspect and figure out their sex. Yeah.
Would fondle them.
Yeah. Innocent people were beat up, sexually assaulted, arrested for no good reason, and they had had enough. Right. So we all know the story of Stonewall. But as the raid was happening, angry patrons and neighborhood residents hung around outside the bar rather than dispersing. They becoming more agitated, more angry, and as the events unfolded, people were getting manhandled. They just started to get pissed. At one point, an officer hits a lesbian over the head and forces her into a van. She shouts at the onlookers, do something.
Right.
And this incites the crowd to start throwing pennies, bottles, cobblestones, and other objects at the police. It starts to go crazy.
Right.
An interesting history side note, a group of women, many women of color, held a protest of their own a few hundred feet down the road from Stonewall. They were being held at a women's house of detention. So they were in a prison on Christopher Street, and they could see that there was commotion outside, and they could see that it was with the gay bars, and they figured out what was happening. The imprisoned women chanted gay power, and they set their possessions on fire and threw them out the prison windows, in solidarity with what was happening. One of these women that was inside that evening was Black Panther Party member Afeni Shakur, Tupac's mother. Yeah.
What?
Isn't that crazy?
Holy shit.
That's a whole nother story. I think maybe at some point we should cover her. She's got the craziest story.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hulu documentary came out about it.
Did you watch it? I didn't watch it yet, but I just saw that it was coming. I didn't know if it was out yet or not. It is out. But it looks good. But she has a fascinating life story.
Wow.
Really fascinating.
Interesting.
Within minutes, a full-blown riot involving hundreds of people began. Police, a few prisoners, and the Village Voice writer barricaded themselves back in the bar. They're shook. They get themselves back in the bar. The mob attempts to set fire to the Stonewall with them inside.
Right.
They're like, fuck you guys. A fire department and a riot squad were eventually able to douse the flames and rescue those inside. They had to been shitting their pants.
Oh my God, yes.
And disperse the crowd. But protests, sometimes involving thousands of people, continued in the area for 5 more days, flaring up at the point that the Village Voice published their accounts of the riot. Obviously, there's a ton of characters we can talk about regarding Stonewall, and we should and probably will. But since this is a crime podcast, sometimes we need to discuss complicated characters of history. We are only going to focus on Ed the Skull Murphy. So after Stonewall, Ed went to work for another gay bar called Telestar.
In the same city?
Yeah. Telestar was raided by police just nights after. And he's pissed. He's like, what the fuck?
Right.
So Murphy told friends that he refused to let police into the bar, so they beat the shit out of him. He was covered in cuts and welts, had bandages all over his face, his arm was broken, and he was barely able to walk.
So he's the bouncer.
Yeah. They beat him up right outside.
Wow. But he was probably buying them time inside.
Maybe, yeah. So the beating may have been at the instigation of Deputy Inspector Seymour Pine, who was probably pissed that he got away at Stonewall.
Right.
But it could just be because he was there. That's just accusation, I guess. Mm-hmm. Some people still believe that officers may have been angry with him for impersonating a police officer, but who's to say? Murphy goes to jail. I guess they pick him up. Mm-hmm. And during his jail stay, he's raped by a black inmate. Murphy said this was because the police had heard he liked black people. He hung around with them. He protected black teenagers and black trans people. Obviously, I'm cleaning the language up from what the quote was because it was very aggressive.
Right.
After Murphy was released from jail, he stopped informing for the NYPD. In 1978, he came out as a gay man and stopped informing for the mob, to the mafia, to the FBI. So that part's a little confusing because, like, it seems like he still continued to work for the mob for a while because, like, it took a long time to get the mob out of the gay bar scene. So he was still always working for them. So, like, that part does seem a little wishy-washy even in the story. But he's 52. He claims he wanted to quit both his careers as a criminal freelancer and an informer, and he wanted to work for the gay liberation. He wanted to become a good guy. Instead, Ed continued to live and work in New York at mob-affiliated gay bars and clubs. He solicited cash donations from businesses, many of them mob-owned, to help fund the Christopher Street Festival. So 1 year later after the raids, they had a parade, right, to celebrate what happened. At the end of the parade, he created this festival. So he is, like, considered one of the people that, like, starts Pride. Like, it to become what it is.
Right.
Like, in 1972, he founded the Christopher Street Festival Committee. It was started to help the local merchants profit from Gay Pride Day and to give people who felt uncomfortable marching a place to meet and mingle with other gay people. In the 1980s and 90s, there were thousands more people at the festival than at the parade. So, like, you know, the parade was what it was. It's not like this now, right? Like, it's fucking massive. But, like, the parade would be like a little parade. But at the end, it would end in, like, the gayborhood, for lack of a better word. And so that the people would profit from it were the people from the community, right? And it would also give people who were, you know, closeted the ability to participate.
Right.
Which is huge, right? The parade included primarily middle class and affluent white people, and there were a lot of banners of the community service and activist groups, including religious groups and some church and synagogue groups. So, like, I think the people were just like, we don't care about the parade. Like, that's just, like, corporations and, like, whatever trying to, like, pander to us. Okay. We care about the party. Right? The original march in 1970 started in the Village and ended up in Central Park. In 1974, Murphy had persuaded the organizers to turn that around so it would end at Christopher Street. He almost single-handedly ran and controlled the festival. Most participants were happy with the crowd and the freedom to just be, if only for an afternoon or one night. You know, people often wondered where the money went, said Candida Scott Peele, a longtime AIDS and gay rights activist who helped organize the Pride Parade and the rallies in the 1980s. But if your group ever needed help or there was just someone in need, Ed was always there to lend a hand, or he would find someone who could. Every year, Murphy would come to the Commerce for Catholic Lesbians booth on Christopher Street, and he would always say hello to see how we were doing and make sure none of the commercial vendor booths were bothering them. Eventually, he would end up at one of the nearby bars, like Two Potato, or holding court with a group of young boys. Prior to the festival, Ed took part in the Pride Parade. He would ride with a group of men in a, like, pink Cadillac convertible. There's a picture of him in 1984 on the parade, like, in the car, and his, like, arms are up, and he's wearing a blue sash with the words "Original Stonewaller." Ed Murphy's life after Stonewall had taken a surprising turn. After his previous incarcerations, a juvenile delinquent, a World War II soldier, armed robber, gay bar bouncer, pro wrestler, pimp, house detective, ferry shaker, and informant. He became a community activist. During the 70s and 80s, Ed Murphy was known for his charity work with the homeless, street youths, drag queens, sex workers, people suffering with AIDS, and the mentally handicapped. He was named New York State's Volunteer of the Year in 1977 for his work with people with developmental disabilities. Ed would round up his friends and treat people in residential facilities to parties on Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, and summer picnics. He would dress up as Santa Claus for Christmas. He had this, like, all-purpose tramp clown outfit that he would wear. Like, he would just, like, wear this. He was a marvelous man, said the coordinator of volunteer services for one of the homes. Whenever we needed something in a pinch, Ed was there. It doesn't matter if it was shoelaces or an excursion. Murphy did whatever he needed to be done to make Christmas special. One year, he wanted to have a house for Santa Claus to sit in, but they didn't have any money. So a couple of guys went down to this, like, lumber yard on 10th Avenue, and they stole a bunch of lumber. And they put up a house for Santa to sit in. Wow. And then after the party, they just put it back. They broke it back and
shit.
brought it back. Because he, like,
Right.
is a better dude, right? So the people came, and they were complaining about holes in the
wood.
Yeah, in the wood. And he's like, he said, I asked, what are you yelling about? It's just a couple of holes in the wood. The next year, he got them to donate the lumber for free.
Oh, wow.
From his job as a doorman, Ed collected groups of fellow bar workers and patrons, ex-cons who helped him with the parties. He had an informal group of about 50 bars, and most of them gay bars, where he would get them to provide food and drinks and gifts for the party. They would not accept money. He would say, hey, can you make us hamburgers, or you can get us sodas, so on and so forth. He had bakeries donate to AIDS and hospice, to old age homes. He even got Detective Jim McDonald from his chickens and bulls days to volunteer when he retired.
Wow.
After Stonewall, Ed Murphy appears to have made like a complete transformation from a thug who threatened gay men for money to a burly, bewhiskered Santa Claus who distributed gifts and treats to bring joy to people who had neither. Ed died due to complications of AIDS on February 28th, 1989. His last job was at the Tricks, a gay hustler strip bar in Times Square. At Ed's standing room only funeral, the priest remarked, if Ed is not with God, then there is no God.
That's heavy. That's a mic drop.
As pallbearers carried him to the hearse, a police escort stopped and a tenor sang Danny Boy.
Wow.
A few months after Ed passed away, he was posthumously named Grand Marshal of the 1989 New York City Gay Pride Parade. And the Cadillac that he traditionally rode led the march empty except for the driver.
Wow.
In honor of him.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And that's the story of Ed the Skull Murphy.
I had never heard of that.
I had never heard of him either.
No.
He's a complicated fella.
I mean,
I don't think he was always doing the right thing, but I think he tried in the end, you know?
I would love to expose some hypocrites in Congress and in the church.
Yeah, I think there's like something about that, right? Like some of the people like that they were blackmailing. It's like,
I don't like that some of them committed suicide.
Sorry about it. Yeah, I mean, that sucks, right? And like that, like, I've been thinking about this for days and days, like as I'm like, you know, listening to the story and whatever. Right. And I'm like thinking about it and it's like, yes, this is a problem, right? What they're doing is a problem. But it wouldn't be a problem if it wasn't illegal for people to be gay, right? Like the system, the systemic issue is like creates all of these little problems. Like there's no way we would be blackmailing people if it just no one gave a fuck, you know? Like
it would be like, it's like, you know, like Governor DeSantis like doing all this fucking anti-gay shit. Yeah. And like if he was visiting like, you know, male sex workers and shit, like, and they uncovered him. Yeah. Like I wouldn't be sad about it.
No.
You know what I mean? Because like you're over here banning shit.
Yeah.
And a lot of them do that.
Yeah, 100%.
You know? Because they have such self-hatred.
The call is coming from inside the house.
Right. Dude. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad I heard that story.
Good. I'm glad.
Very good. Very good.
I thought you would find him entertaining.
I did. I liked it. Also, I didn't find what he did was wrong.
I don't really like. You know, it's just like. Yeah, we're taking money from rich people who are fucking being assholes. Like, no one's really that about it.
He's a modern day Robin Hood.
Truly.
So, so that's it for us.
Yes,
right? That's it. That's all you get from us. I want to give a toast, however, to a new patron that we just got. Our new patron, Kona. I want to give a toast to Kona. Ladies and gentlemen, raise your glasses high. Here's to toast, not the one you butter, but the one you utter. May your jokes be funny, your drink stay sunny, and your laughter be so contagious, it's practically outrageous. So let's clink our glasses and make a pact. To live life with humor, that's a well-known fact. Cheers to all the good times, the laughter we share. May this toast remind us that life's too short for despair. Cheers.
Cheers.
So, Kona, thank you for being a sponsor.
Yeah.
I hope you find our little bits of wisdom pearls.
No.
They're probably not. But
maybe they're marbles.
Yeah. So we'll see you next week. But in the meantime, subscribe so you don't miss out. We have merch. We have Patreon. We have Buy Me a Coffee. Do like Kona and do our Patreon. Write a review or share with someone. At the very least, it costs you nothing. You can connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
Yes.
To that. All of the socials.
All the socials.
Yes. Remember, really, please don't get taken to the second location.
Mm-mm.
Don't get taken to the second location.
I don't think that's
you
a
know
good idea.
like anytime I listen to a lot of true crime.
Yeah.
Every time you get taken to the second location, it's never fares
It's
well.
not good.
No, they're not going to throw you a surprise party at the second location.
No.
Or be good at hiding a body. That's all I got. That's my advice to you.
That's right.
Cheers. Bye.
Are you okay? Jesus Christ. Fucking loud. You're disgusting and I hate you both. I hate you.